I'm going to start with this top question that viewers have been asking us since Wednesday. Will you resign?
No.
No equivocation. Do you feel like that's even an appropriate question?
No.
Joe Biden said that on his first day of office, he will give transgender students access to sports, bathrooms, and locker rooms in accordance with their gender identity in all federally funded schools. Do you think he has the ability to do this, and do you agree with this decision?
I agree with the decision, and I know he'll check things out thoroughly legally.
Stop inspiring people to commit potential acts of violence. Someone's going to get hurt, someone's going to get shot, someone's going to get killed.
The uniting has started. Thankfully, we've turned the page, and our politics now has been upended from the horrible, mean, evil, white-hot train wreck that it was. We're so much better now as a culture, thankfully. It's going to be one of the lessons of the last 4 years is that the craziness of the last 4 years had very little to do with Donald Trump. It really just had to... It was the confluence of things that finally came to a head. And if Joe Biden decides to make the national conversation about using executive orders to make it okay for a man who's 18 years old in high school, who's...
Or colleges, I assume, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, but at high school is even... Who's declaring that he's now no longer a man and he's a woman, so he wants to be able to use the female locker room where all the naked women are, then we are going to have a problem. And that is going to be a cultural conversation that the left, certainly in blue states, you've been scoffed at, laughed at, and if you've done anything but completely applaud for something like this. Completely applaud for, a track star, a 17-year-old boy track star deciding that he's a woman and then racing and beating all the girls in the field in women's track, etc. You've had to just sit and take it if you've been in blue states. But if Biden tries to federalize this stuff, this pure insanity, and then that's going to be a problem. I'm not obviously saying that the trans people are insane, although I don't know, because I don't know what they are, how healthy different trans folks are, or not mentally healthy. I don't know how healthy or mentally healthy any folks are now more than ever, and I certainly don't have a problem with anybody a guy deciding he wants to be a girl or a girl deciding she wants to be a guy. I understand that, and it's been happening forever. It was whatever. I don't care. I don't want men with men equipment who may or may not be really interested in seeing naked women walking into the place where my daughter is getting changed. And for me to say that, if that's considered an affront to somebody, they can go to hell, because that is simply everybody's responsibility. There's a reason why in the YMCA in downtown, when we went to Melrose, that I didn't just stroll right into the ladies' room in the YMCA. I'm sure there were some pretty good-looking women in there. But you don't do that because there's a reason, and there's a security reason. The thing is, there is either COVID, in which case mayors like this guy from Michael Hancock shouldn't be going on the plane, or there is not COVID. One of the two is true. There is either sexual assaults happening. There are either sexual assaults happening in this country, or there are not on women. Because I was told that if you look at the statistics, that first of all, many of them, large percentage of them, go unreported, and also that they happen in places of opportunity. That's why under bridges, behind bushes, in locker rooms, places where, if you're the predator, the man, it's almost always the man. If you're the predator, you have an opportunity to commit sexual assault, unhindered by a third party, generally, or whatever other perversion it is. It only makes it. Are we seriously having to discuss this as if we have to build a case for whether or not this exists? There are rapists and pervs, men out there all over the place, and just for the heck of it. Just for the heck of it, let's just keep the men away from the girls, just in case.
I mean, Massachusetts has one of these laws about public accommodations that you have to treat people by gender identity, and they refused. Our legislature voted down an amendment that would carve out an exception for registered sex offenders in the law. So there's not even any like safeguards to this stuff. There's no safety rail on this to keep it from going completely into crazy territory. And, you know, that's how they wanted it. People put forward an amendment to say, like, why don't we at least just not include sex offenders in the men who are allowed in women's bathrooms?
Right.
And the legislature voted that down. No, sex offenders have the right to be in the women's bathroom, too.
I talked to the Attorney General of Massachusetts about this and brought up this very same question. There are fathers like me, parents, who are worried about straight men saying they're trans, who are going to walk into a bathroom and try to sexually assault people, you know, who are loved ones. Because if you're a perv, then you'd exploit any loophole you can, of course.
Well, right, and it's not even a question.
What she said to me was essentially is that we don't have a lot of metrics showing that's a crime that happens a lot.
Well, because it didn't used to be legal.
Right.
Obviously.
Well, but also
it was never an opportunity area.
They're suggesting that sexual assaults and other assaults don't happen in restrooms, and if not, then why do we need the new laws? Right. Has there been this incredible spike in epidemic of straight men seeing trans people in bathrooms and deciding that's the implication. Is that straight men, obviously cretins and evil and mean anyway, the Trump supporters is what they're talking about, will see a trans person in the bathroom, and obviously you got to beat them up, even if you have to be in a business meeting in 4 minutes or whatever. No, I mean, you definitely... I mean, that's what
audio here, so I'm going to have to fill in your audio after. Just so you know.
I mean, is that what they're saying?
Yeah, that trans people are assaulted in bathrooms or attacked or made fun of or whatever. So it violates their rights to be, well, which really, like, for most trans people, I mean, if you saw Blair White, who's this trans conservative commentator, walk into the women's bathroom, would anyone bat an eye or tell Blair White not to go in that bathroom? No. In a million years. No, it's a non-problem. The problem is that it's a gift to lawyers. It's so that people can sue businesses for, you know, if they say like, oh, excuse me, the men's is over there because they got confused. So you can sue them over it, you know, and that's what the laws codify, because no one was really like doing this anyway. Nobody was checking genitals before people went in the bathroom. I mean, that's ridiculous. Nobody has ever done that. But people just use the bathroom where they generally look like they belong, and everybody moves on with their day. This was never like some huge issue. And the reason why people have a problem with it isn't because I don't want, you know, Blair White to be able to use the women's bathroom, because I don't think that anybody thinks that particularly matters for anything. But the reason why it's a problem is that you don't want businesses afraid to say something if there is a suspicious person going into the wrong bathroom. And that's what this puts into law, is it makes it so that when, you know, Tom Shattuck walks into the women's locker room at the YMCA, the business is afraid of getting sued, so they don't do anything about it. You know?
Right.
And so it removes that ability of a business to sort of, if they see something weird and shady happening in bathrooms or locker rooms, to sort of kick somebody out because they're afraid of getting called bigots, you know? And that's the issue. I don't care about trans people, which bathrooms trans people use. I care about people abusing the fear of businesses to get sued for discrimination, you know, like, and abusing that fear. Like you said, people will find any loophole, and it didn't used to be a loophole. Oh my gosh. I used to work at a department store, at a cosmetics counter in a department store. And the people that the cosmetics counter girls all hung around with were the ladies of the department store security team, who were, some were also like MPs at Hanscom and just did this part-time and whatever. Right. Yeah, Hanscom Air Force Base. So these were, there were a lot of women who love women among them, and they love to hang out with the cosmetics girls, and their favorite thing was to catch some perv man walking into the women's locker room, and they would dress them down. That was the favorite thing, that they'd love to friggin' catch perverts in the women's locker rooms and yell at them and intimidate them and chase them out of the store. That was they lived for that. That's why they had the job.
Yes.
And they can't do that anymore. So that's what you've taken away from the LGBT community. is the joy
poaching perverts
is the joy of the department store security guards. So I hope you're happy.
And also, if Biden does this is not a moderate maneuver. I mean, we've been shamed to ever suggesting careers have been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on with Jerry Callahan tomorrow. This issue specifically torpedoed his on-air terrestrial radio career,
right?
And many other people, and because you can't even have the conversation.
Yeah, you're not allowed to talk about this. You can't have an honest conversation about it at all.
Which is why we are lucky that we have no sponsors, because they can't be pressured, Alex.
Right? Yeah, you can
right.
call all of our sponsors.
Yes.
In a very short amount of time, and you can find them all and tell them to stop advertising on our show, which they will happily do. So, good luck with that. You can't cancel us, and yeah, I mean, it's just funny to me because I don't think the people that are for these laws have ever talked to anybody who's against them and listened to what their actual objections and concerns are.
No. Oh, no, I can tell you for a fact, just back in the Herald Radio days, I would talk to liberals and progressives and trans people, and they would all assume they knew what my problem was, and it was never what they thought. And they would always assume you're suggesting that trans people are going to be sexual. It's like, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting it's not a trans person. It's not a lesbian who's going to do the sexual assaulting. It's not a woman who's going to do the sexual assaulting. It's who always does the sexual assaulting, straight men. I'm afraid. Right. I'm worried that straight men are going to follow my little girl into the room. And like you say, the security's not going to say a thing and is not going to look at no one will intervene, and because it's a problem. That's going to be a problem. It's also just is it wrong to protect women? Why is that a byproduct of this wonderful new progress we're making here in woke America? That the women have to be just tossed aside now. Sorry about that. You have to be a casualty to the movement here. Same thing with all these judges who are throwing out, there are some judges. Judges are throwing out cases, or very progressive district attorneys who are, advocating to have people released from jails and advocating to throw charges out. So you have rapists, prolific rapists. There's one who was raping people in the Charles River, around the Charles River in Boston for, God, most of them more than 10 years. Many women, bang, he's free. There you go. Thanks. You put your few years in. But, the way things were, that the DA didn't want to, overreach, and they wanted to get what they could get and just get the transaction done, whatever.
Well, right. I mean, it's interesting to me how many of the cases of, police-involved shootings of black men have involved, in particular, crimes against women. A lot of the people who've ended up in these fatal altercations with police, not all, certainly, but many of them have had records in which they really treat the women in their lives abominably. Oftentimes it's the women, oftentimes women of color, who call the police on these men because of the violence being committed against them. So there's pluses and minuses to everything, liberals. It doesn't get to all be perfect every time. Sometimes you have to choose one group of people over another group of people, and there's not a simple answer that just makes everyone better off. Sometimes you have to prioritize one thing over another thing, and you have to be able to admit that, because it is women who end up getting the short end of the stick on these issues oftentimes. Oh,
now more than ever. So we're going to talk to VB in a couple of minutes, and about a very, you could say, really kind of a classic funny story about something happening here in Boston. There's a children's museum in Boston, and next to it, somebody has opened a PB&J restaurant. Is this a chain, Alice?
No, it's a one-off by Stonewall Kitchen.
Okay, and that's, of course, become a thing. That's a problem now for the world. We'll discuss that in a moment. But some interesting stuff popping up just this evening. I don't know if you ever follow James O'Keefe of Project Veritas. Mm-hmm. He's done some really good undercover stuff. Some of the stuff has been some of the stuff has been really enlightening. He just records people in video undercover, and sometimes he busts people, and sometimes they don't bust people. But it's the left immediately throws it out, saying everything that he says has been completely debunked, and he lies about everything. It's not true. You can do the work yourself and find out. But he's managed to get himself in on the morning meeting phone call of CNN with Jeff Zucker.
Amazing.
There's nothing great on this it's dropping right now. But he did have a teaser video out where he jumps on the call to talk to Zucker.
Washington.
You're unmuted.
Hey, Jeff Zucker, are you there? Hey,
yes.
This is James O'Keefe. We've been listening to your CNN calls for basically 2 months, recording everything. Just wanted to ask you some questions if you have a minute. Do you still feel you're the most trusted name in news? Because I have to say, from what I've been hearing on these phone calls, I don't know about that. I mean, we got a lot of recordings that indicate you're not really that independent of a journalist.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. So everybody, in light of that, I think what we'll do is we'll set up a new system, and we'll be back with you. We'll do the rest of the call a little bit later.
We're going to release those recordings today at 7 o'clock, so stay tuned. It's going to be fun.
Good thinking, Jeff. I would set up a new meeting, as a matter of fact. That's probably a good idea.
I mean, so CNN, I think, has been saying that they think there may have been a crime committed.
Yeah.
Presumably, O'Keefe ran this by some attorneys and figured he has gotten in some trouble before, but... He has. Well,
I mean, maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. I was told that it's all good when you can whistleblow. The more transparent, the better. I'm fine. You want to... I think it's fun. I think the people at CNN have it coming. And Zucker, I don't know if anything great's going to be on these things. I mean, you figure, you never know. Arrogant people, they just totally... Sometimes there's an arrogance that comes out, especially in meetings, where somebody can't just shut the hell up, and it's remarkable what they'll say.
Right.
Remarkable.
I mean, from what he said, it sounded like he was mostly hinting that it turns out they're liberals, which I don't know is going to be like hugely breaking news to anybody.
I heard a little bit of one tonight when they said, okay, we got to be careful on what we cover for Trump because he's disputing the election. We don't want to lend too much credence to this. It's like, yeah, that's what they would say at CNN.
Yeah, we knew that.
If there's anything more salacious, we'll see. But there have been, I was in a couple of meetings. It doesn't matter. Nothing great, but along the lines of protecting girls. More than a decade ago, 15 years ago, I was in a meeting with a superior, just talking, and another guy who was a superior to me, came in and talked to that guy while I was in the room. Just kind of barged in and said, was all excited because he had new, essentially, interns coming on, and it was going to be a good time, So yeah. It was. I was shocked because I was right there. I mean, I knew that these guys. There's a lot of like flashy sales guys, whatever, and I knew that they like to have a good time and etc. But to be so bold. Well, I'm right there. They don't know if I'm cool with this stuff,
Right.
I mean, there wasn't human trafficking going on, but they were just very pleased to be bringing on these. Anyway, and there was nothing illegal happening. But if that had been leaked, that would have been a problem. And I don't know. I don't expect Zucker, considering there are women on the call. Who knows? Who knows? I don't expect Zucker would do that. But I think we've all been in situations where it's like, you can't say this stuff. And actually, the more I think about it, the more it's people saying stuff and doing, men being inappropriate with women. Just to think about it. Now that we're on that theme of like women not catching a break, I'm just shocked. Just even like 10 years ago, 10 years ago, worked with a guy who used to kiss the women right on the lips. Guy he was charming. He's a little handsy but charming. He used to how are you? You look beautiful this morning, and right on the lips. And this guy was like 48, and some of these girls were college interns.
I seriously think I mean, I don't think anybody my age or older, maybe for younger women it's different, I don't know, but I don't think anybody has gone through life without being in at least one workplace where you were warned to steer clear of someone who is a problem person, who is too touchy. I don't get it. I don't get why companies, I mean, nowadays I guess they have to fire them because it's like a liability, or take them aside and let them know to keep it to themselves, but I don't know how places put up with it for so long. Yeah, he just grabs the women, like, we can't stop. Oh, well, like, we can't do anything. He's a nice guy. He just keeps grabbing the women where he
you have to be fondled a little bit, but,
It's cool. It's part of the job.
So I do want to, before we get to VB, I do want to get to this mayor in Denver, the Denver mayor, Michael Hancock, excoriates from on Twitter the new COVID, lock yourself inside rules while at the airport just before jumping on a flight.
Right, yeah. He's at the airport tweeting, "Don't travel unless absolutely necessary." And in the meantime, he's about to get on the plane.
Guy got absolutely busted. He had to do a Zoom meeting call thing with a reporter. The reporter puts it right to him.
I'm going to start with this top question that viewers have been asking us since Wednesday. Will you resign?
No.
No equivocation. Do you feel like that's even an appropriate question?
No.
No way. What do you mean?
It's not an appropriate question.
Yeah, no, I had to go. I had a flight to get to. What do you think? Yeah, no.
I mean,
no. Listen, I have not broken any laws. I went against a policy advisement that even I gave out, and it was on.
Wait a second. Is this exonerating him?
He didn't break any laws.
Right.
He broke the advice that he was giving you.
Exactly. Although he was not targeted by his own crack squads of COVID enforcers.
It was hypocritical. It was a mistake that I deeply regret.
It's so easy to be a hypocritical
and
liberal.
deeply apologize for. But it is not something that should stop the work that we have been doing for the last 9-10 months to really save this city. We have done enormous work with regards to combating this virus. I'm proud of the people I work with, and I made a mistake. I recognize that
So can we all make a mistake then, Mr. Mayor? Can we be free to do stuff too, like you? Incredible.
My job as mayor is to not only come up with safe practices for the entire city, but also to set an example. And on that measure, I failed, and I should have followed my own advice.
Did you think you were going to go on this trip and no one would find out about it?
I never even thought about it. It was a personal trip, personal time.
You don't understand. No, it's a personal thing. I had to go. I had stuff to do.
Yeah,
to see my
I had
daughter.
people to see.
Yeah, I have important things to do. I have loved ones that I care about that I don't get to see through all this. It's very tough on me. Of course, he's gainfully employed, like he could give a crap.
Instead of sitting down, I should have stood up and walked back, got in my car, and drove back to my house. Instead, I chose to sit there with my wife and a number of other couples that were outside the household.
So we're all good now. I was a hypocrite. I did bad. I screwed up. We all screw up. My friend's 50th birthday, really been planning on hard. Number of other couples. It turned out 11 other couples.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
Unreal.
That's
and
fine.
they're not the only ones either. Another one got busted today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't have audio of him yet, but he is the mayor of El Paso. And the mayor of El Paso put out the following statement today. His name is, Sam Liccardo. So Sam Liccardo says, a recent news report has raised questions about my family's Thanksgiving dinner last week. On Thanksgiving afternoon, my wife Jessica and I attended my parents' house for an outdoor dinner on their backyard patio, along with my sister-in-law. The 5 of us, plus my brother, have dined together appropriately spaced once or twice a week for several months as a stable group of 3 households. On this occasion, that brother joined us late and dined separately after we completed our meal. One of my sisters also joined us for this Thanksgiving afternoon, along with her son and daughter-in-law.
Jesus. 5 of us plus my brother is growing.
Yeah, it was just 5 of us plus my brother plus 3 more people. In summary, 8 of us representing 5 households sat around
3
distanced tables in our own family groups on a back patio, and we wore masks when not eating. I have a very large family. I am one of 5 children, and several of our family members. Several of our family members who would have often joined us for Thanksgiving in the past, including sisters, nephews, nieces, and cousins, stayed home out of caution. After I returned home,
there's usually 75 of us.
After I returned home, I saw an NBC reporter's tweet that I dined at home for Thanksgiving, apparently based on information from my communications office.
I didn't tell him to say that. No way.
Since that was inaccurate, I asked that we communicate with the reporter to correct the record by clarifying that I was at my parents' home.
God,
my home,
doesn't pay to be a flack.
Home. That's really tough to tell sometimes. The following day, my chief of staff reached out to that reporter, informing him that I was at my parents' house, which resulted in his report last night. I understand that the state regulations issued on November 13th limit the number of households at a private gathering to 3. I apologize for my decision to gather contrary to state rules by attending this Thanksgiving meal with my family. I understand my obligation as a public official to provide exemplary compliance with the public health orders and certainly not to ignore them. I commit to do better.
Yeah.
So Sam Liccardo commits to do better.
My bad. We're all good now. Are you going to step down? No.
No, geez, I have important work to do.
Out of here. There's no jobs in the private sector. I'm going to leave. All right. It is time for VB. All right, here we go again. This is our bi-monthly, I'm calling it bi-monthly from going forward, chat with VB. You can get him on Twitter at VBTheWise. He's a man of multiple gigs and professional lives. And I assume, VB, that you'll be starting your own podcast very shortly. I can help you with that, by the way, and you can have some of a taste of the success that I'm having here with Alice on the Burn Barrel. Good evening.
I'd more prefer a taste of some of Alice's Christmas cooking. I hope that has begun, by the way.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, there'll be about 85,000 cookies, right, which is not something that I should have lying around, but this is how Alice does it. She goes big or doesn't go at all.
Alice, as much gingerbread as you want to make, you send it on over.
Gingerbread, delicious. Last year, VB, we were in Vermont for Christmas. So we did a tree in Vermont, but I didn't want to bring up all our decorations. So instead, we made gingerbread cookies and had the kids decorate them and hung those on the tree. Old school with some paper chains. And it was fabulous. It was lovely.
Love it.
We got
Love it. And by the way, the thing about gingerbread is I don't care how, quote, stale it gets, Shattuck, you can eat that like 10 months later. You got to let it sit for a while in the yap, you know? You got to let it soften, but it will eventually. And down it goes. It's great.
Or you can dip it in your coffee.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
You guys have the contemporary palates of the Waltons.
Shattuck, I'll give you a VB exclusive right now. For the first time in my life, I am attempting to make malted milk balls this Christmas.
Ooh, that sounds exciting.
Alice, don't encourage this.
I like malted milk balls.
He has a sucky palate, Alice.
VB, if you do malted milk balls, then what's next is for Easter, then you have to make them into little eggs.
That we can. Let's see how this baby steps.
When VB,
Alice, I'm going to try and make them with a red center and a green center, and then I'm going to cover them in white.
Don't get excited for this crap, Alice.
I'm excited.
I would rather have you be interested in the joining ISIS than joining the gingerbread club.
I love gingerbread. Sally and I were already talking about it. About doing houses.
It's terrible. It's great. If it's 1811, it's fantastic. But that's.
So, what is your Christmas cookie of choice then?
My Christmas, it's funny because you live with somebody who knows how to do this perfectly well. My Christmas cookie of choice is a chocolated chipped cookie that should be 50-50 chocolate to dough. If not 70-30 chocolate to dough. It should be heavily chocolate. Your wife has done this before. It's made fantastic cookies. Hold on, we have a child yelling in here. Alice, do something subtly but stern that people won't pick up on that repels him.
Children, the elves are watching.
Oh,
that's all you got to say.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Ours hasn't come out, although they found him in hiding already because, of course, I can't leave anything alone.
It seemed like you were hinting at a wife swap there, Shattuck, and it's too early in the season for that. I appreciate my wife's chocolate chip cookies are great, but they're all year round. There's nothing Christmassy about them. You got to liven it up here. You got to put a little peppermint in there. You got to get some. My wife makes a Christmas meringue that's to die for.
I did meringues last year too.
Oh, a meringue cookie?
A
meringue?
Yes.
Are you really sullying this podcast with meringue?
They were delicious, and I did peppermint extract in them, so they were peppermint meringues.
Alice, you and I got a rendezvous. That's all there is to it.
Yes, and then we did.
You were speaking my language.
This is a boring one. This is a boring one, but it's really fun for the kids. Which is, we dip Oreos in melted chocolate, and then let the kids decorate them with stuff. And
Obviously,
let them
that's
dry.
a winner. Obviously, that's a winner.
So that's a good one.
And not just the high octane Oreos. They should at least quadruple stuff. At least.
Okay.
Alice Shattuck has it going on. Tom Shattuck, we're still befuddled as to what the strength is there.
So one of the problems with BB, Alice, this is why he's got a palate that it's 19th century palate. When he was fat, he got fat from drinking soda pop. How does that even happen in the modern era? But that's how it happened.
I like you say when I was, as if COVID didn't bring it all back. Believe me, it's a problem.
Did it? No, but you're not.
Yes, it did.
We're not talking 1997.
We're talking we are way too much more
really
than we needed.
Oh, good. I
could be
you.
Santa, no problem.
Come to my world. Good. I welcome you, VB, because I've gone the wrong direction. Ever since I went on a diet like 18 years ago, I've just gained weight every year. But that's ending now. Alice and I have turned our lives around. That's boring. It's for another day. Let's talk about the peanut butter situation in Boston. Alice?
So have you been to the Children's Museum ever, Thomas?
I was there. You dragged me there, and it was a hellacious event 3 years ago.
With a kid, not like on a date when we were single.
Right, with the kids. Yeah. And I was there as a kid.
And do you remember there's like a restaurant adjoining sort of the gift shop of the Children's Museum? It used to be McDonald's when I was a kid.
And then it was an Au Bon Pain.
Right, then it was Au Bon Pain, and then now...
I'm sorry, how did you say that word?
Au Bon Pain.
Oh, okay. You're using the proper French dialect to say this.
Yes.
You are a VB kind of person.
Au Bon Pain. Okay. So anyway, but I remember it as McDonald's. That's what I remember from my childhood. But now it is a Stonewall Kitchen PB&J cafe.
Okay. Does that mean it's all peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?
No. It's a cafe for kids. It's got sandwiches.
Yeah,
of all
but
shapes,
it's focused around peanut butter and jelly, which is that's the main
that's their signature
offering.
thing.
Right.
It's like Wendy's, right? Wendy's has the Dave's Deluxe or the Big Dave's Classic, or McDonald's has the Big Mac would be their signature. The PB&J Cafe has peanut butter and jelly, sure, but you can get other stuff there.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, but it's focused towards that.
Okay, that's the theme running through it. Go ahead. And what is the problem?
I mean, when people...
Well, what would be your guess as to what the problem is, Tom?
I
wasn't sure when I first heard this.
I would think that the most pathetic thing would be that kids are allergic to peanut butter, maybe? Is that it?
Yes.
It is.
Okay.
There are peanut allergy parents out there that think this was extremely distasteful by the Children's Museum to allow this to go in there because, in theory, some child like yours could go in and eat a peanut butter and jelly and then go into the Children's Museum and the interactive exhibits and touch things when they might still have some sort of peanut butter residue on their hands.
Right, yeah. Which is according to, every community's Dr. Fauci, probably a real threat.
To how much, though? To who? And by the way, as your wife accurately pronounced it, the Au Bon Pain that was in there prior to this going in, the Au Bon Pain had several peanut items on their menu, and no one once said anything about it because it was an Au Bon Pain. Okay. But this one has PB&J in the name, and apparently that is just too much for people to bear, and they can't deal with it.
So I kind of honestly come down a little bit on the other side of this. I mean, I'm not like about to go out here and shut down the PB&J Cafe, but we have a kid with peanut allergies, and I wouldn't take him there to eat, to be honest. And I mean, he doesn't have super severe allergies, like touch allergies, but there are kids who, if they touch peanut butter, will have an anaphylactic reaction. And it's not that there were peanut items and lots of other allergen items available at Au Bon Pain too, but the focus of this restaurant, and I have their menu in front of me, is they have the classic PB&J, the build your own peanut butter sandwich, the peanut butter and sliced banana sandwich, the peanut butter and chocolate sauce sandwich, the chunky peanut butter and honey sandwich, etc.
Right.
So their menu really is mostly PB&J. And so when they responded to this criticism, they said, like, well, we also offer almond butter as a substitute, which is like great. But if you're one of the kids who's going to touch a peanut and die, then, that's small consolation. So it's because this place is full of it. And obviously that's marketed to the kids going into the museum, which in Oberham isn't really. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the idea is that kids are going to hit the museum and the PB&J place. That's why it's there. That's why they chose that spot.
How you liking your little cookie buddy now, VB?
So, but wait, let me finish my thought. And the problem with peanut butter is that kids do get it everywhere. It's not just, they don't eat it there. And yes, it was never banned at the other places that were there before. But the idea that you're going to serve a bunch of kids peanut butter and then have them run through the museum is scary to parents whose kids could then touch that peanut butter and have to go to the hospital. So I mean, I think they absolutely will lose patrons over it. It probably, because there are parents who are that fearful. And I think it depends how severely allergic your child is, but that's a more significant risk than a McDonald's or an Oberham. I mean, I would, like I say, I wouldn't take my kid there to eat.
They wouldn't want a McDonald's there, right? Because fast food's the great Satan to a lot of people now.
Well, I would love to have a McDonald's there, personally.
I know, but this is what we run into, which is you cannot please everybody. And if 1% is a loud minority able to shut things down, you're never going to have, what are you going to put in next to a children's museum? A thing that specializes in pate? I mean, this is what kids eat. 95% of them, they eat peanut butter and jelly. So it does make sense. And I get that there are kids that have peanut allergies. My daughter has a hazelnut allergy. So she has a walnut allergy as well. We have to be careful about what she eats, and we keep an eye on it and whatever.
Right. But those aren't like, if there was a store that was focused specifically on selling hazelnut and walnut butter items to kids, would you take your daughter there to eat?
Of course not, but I would take her to the Children's Museum. Absolutely. She knows what she's capable of. She's been educated on it. We have the EpiPen if we're going there anyway. But it'd be like, honey, look, we're going to the museum. We're not going into that place, obviously. And she'd be like, oh, that stinks. Yeah, it does. It's fine. And we're going to enjoy the museum anyway because that's what it's about.
But I think I was just looking at the numbers. About 2 or 3% of kids have peanut allergies. So it's small.
And to what extent does that, within that grouping, what percentage has the touch thing that lasts after a certain amount of time?
I don't know, but it's not just the kid with the peanut allergies that's not going to go. It's their siblings also. So,
yes. Sorry, VB.
We've quadrupled.
Gretchen Whitmer Shattuck wants it shut down.
I don't want it shut down. I'm just saying they're absolutely going to lose some people who will not, for medical reasons, be able to go there. I mean, and
the idea that you have to, when my kids go to the movies, which if you can remember back when there was a time when you could do that, I would explain to them, we don't always get snacks when we go to the movies, and they will scream and hoot and holler. Too bad. It's not an eating extravaganza. We're going to see a film or a movie. So the idea that you have to eat when you go to the Children's Museum, I've been to the Children's Museum and I've not gone to the Oban Pan. It's no big deal.
And we didn't go there either when we went, but there are a lot of things that kids touch in the Children's Museum, and a lot of kids, when they eat peanut butter, that's why they don't allow it in like preschools and stuff, and it's not because the kid is necessarily going to eat someone else's peanut butter. It's because, it gets on stuff. So our kid, he's not like super reactive to peanut, but Tom's brother one time brought some dog treats for our dog that had peanut in them, and he was on Benadryl for like the next 3 days because there was like peanut dust in the air that was making him go red and puffy. So it's you just don't want to deal with that if you're going to a place where there's peanut allergies and where there's peanuts around. We used to love going to Texas Roadhouse. We don't go there. So there are just going to be families that are going to make the choice just not to go to the Children's Museum, which, like you say, is fine. But I think they absolutely will lose business over it, and it is telling those people that have allergies like that, you're not welcome at the Children's Museum. That's the message.
when you walk into the children's museum, more so now than it was even then, but there are Purell places everywhere. Kids are told and parents are told, and you got to do this, that, and the other thing. And you got to be careful with what you do. Now, if your kid has that kind of peanut allergy to that level, first of all, you got to pick and choose where you go, and you got to be very careful about it. And also, one of the things that you probably are going to pass on is the touching exhibits, because you risk reward with everything. And if you are that sensitive to it, what you have two choices. One is you shut down 99% of the people and what they like to do to placate you, or you shut down your thing and you go, man, that stinks. I'd love to have touched the stingray, but you know what? It's not for me.
Well, look, I get it, but the message is that the Children's Museum isn't for you. If you have a strong peanut allergy, then the Children's Museum is not a place for you. So that's the message that those parents of those kids...
Any kid could come in with gunk on his hands anyway.
Of course,
from
but the odds are a lot higher if you put a smear peanut butter all over yourself station right outside the door, which is what this is. Let's be real. Have you seen our kids eat?
I have.
And they're not clean. So if you put a spot by the door of the building where kids are going to touch a bunch of peanut butter, the odds go up.
Good mask-wearing liberals like you who try to personify and demonstrate physically how good you are with all your lawn signs and all your mask-wearing and all your Facebook posting about people without them can wipe your kids down before you send them out into the ropes and the swings and stuff.
So, but you're counting on other people to do that. And I mean... Look, like I say, I'm not saying they have to get rid of it or something, but I'm saying that it does send a message to parents of kids with food allergies, which is, we don't need your business. That's what it says. And so that's fine. That is the message. And that's what UNVB are saying. That's what UNVB are saying.
You're walk saying around it.
If your kid is that allergic, then you can't go to the Children's Museum. That's the message. And that's what those parents are taking away. And that's why they're mad. Because the Children's Museum said, our museum isn't for you anymore. That's what they said.
Oh, I've never complained that there's so many bars around the Boston Garden. Like, that's just not my thing. It's not my deal. And it's fine. I have to be aware, be vigilant, take precautions, etc. I think you, as a parent, I do this with my daughter all the time. And that's how you have to go. The other angle to this story, by the way, is the way the Globe covered it. They made the owner of the place feel like he was some sort of white supremacist who had to defend himself. And he actually had comments in the paper like, we didn't mean to offend anybody when we named this PB&J. And I swear to you, we had the best of intentions. He was given the third degree, like he is a bad person for trying to bring joy and pleasure to kids. It was crazy.
Alice, did you write that piece today?
Yes, I am secretly a Globe writer. No, I didn't. I mean, like I say, I don't mind. Places can exist where I can't take my kids, but it's tough to have, and I know this because I'm in a lot of like food allergy parent groups online and stuff, that, you know, people put a lot of effort into figuring out where the safe places are and determining what the risks are. And so when a place changes the level of risk that is at that place and you no longer feel comfortable going there, then, you know, it really is the company has made a decision that they don't need your business, that the business of that 1% of people, like you said, VB, you can make 1% of people happy or you can make the other 99% happy. So the people that want to go to the peanut butter and jelly cafe are more important to the Children's Museum than the people whose kids have severe peanut allergies. And that's the decision that they made, and that's fine. But you can't blame the other people for being offended either. You know,
I can. I think those people often just are hell-bent on making you yield to what it is that makes them comfortable, when in this case, I don't think this was anything. I think they got a company that is a local New England company that wanted to go in there, which, by the way, there's not a lot of places opening restaurants right now, in case you didn't notice.
Right.
These guys say, we'll take this on, and local, great, they're kid-friendly, everything works out great, but people... Everything has to be a knockdown, drag out controversy. And this one to me is just, it's crazy and it's stupid. And I don't know what would please people to have in there. It would be better to have a McDonald's in there. How can that be? How?
Well, obviously it would be better, but.
Well, the thing is, McDonald's can't, if you take your kid to McDonald's to eat, it's far less likely to send another kid who is near your kid later to the hospital. That's all.
Whoa, Alice. The same kid, our kid, has a sesame seed allergy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, McDonald's has sesame seeds, doesn't it?
They do.
Well, there you go.
But sesame seeds are harder to smear on your hands. That's the point. Peanut butter is the #1 allergy among kids, and it is a pervasive substance that's hard to get off of stuff. And kids get it everywhere.
Within reason here.
That's why.
Pervasive substance.
That's why kids. That's why they don't give it to kids like in preschools when you have an allergic kid, because it's really hard to keep it under control. And this is not just a restaurant that happens to have PB&J in the name. Their menu is comprised, whatever percent here. I think
it's taunting you.
There's one menu item that doesn't have PB&J doesn't have peanut butter by default.
That's been smeared too, by the way.
It doesn't. I'm not saying I need to go there, but
big government bully central planner, and you want to ruin the Children's Museum for everybody.
I'm not saying it should be banned.
Just because
I never said anything
chose
should
to
be
have
banned.
a child with a peanut allergy.
I never
Alice.
said anything should be banned.
You can't. When I went to Storyland, we went to a couple of years ago, and I was going to be in the water ride with Sally, and a guy was trying to put the bar down over my primary fat roll, and he's like. And he couldn't. I was trying to suck everything in, and he was like, his whole body was into it. He was calling them reinforcements. And at that moment, he was like, he looked at me and he said, "There's nothing I can do. I'm sorry. We don't usually have this problem." And I could have, Alice, like you want. I could have boycotted the place and said, "You guys aren't nice to the fats. I'm not going back there." But no. And at the end of the story ends, VB, I did actually manage to somehow have the thing click close. So I obviously don't have a weight problem, but still. The problem
How is there video of this entire incident on the web as we speak? Because nothing would bring me more Christmas cheer than you and this guy trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. That would have been.
That's fine. But certain roller coasters aren't for you, right? That's fine. Like certain roller coasters aren't for very overweight people. Certain places, like the PB&J Cafe, are not for kids with allergies, which is fine. I have less of a problem with the restaurant existing than I do with its placement at the door of a place that people thought was a lower risk place for their food allergies than it is now. That's the part that people are upset about. So
my ultimate take on this, Alice, is that a lot of times, some controversy will come to us. Like, I don't know, for example, the Peloton bike ad, if you remember that.
Oh, yes.
So when that happened, I thought to myself, it's hard for me to believe Peloton didn't at least know that there was going to be a pushback here or people were going to be bothered by it. Usually with these controversies, you're like, they had to have known it was coming or they're really stupid. I would have never, ever suspected anything was amiss here with Children's Museum bringing in this place, even though they're not technically connected. I wouldn't have seen any problem with that whatsoever, and I would have been completely caught off guard by it. Maybe that makes me foolish and stupid. And again, I have a child with food allergies. I never would have saw this in any way as being anything other than a perfect fit.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time like in the online food allergy community, so I guess maybe that's why I immediately saw what was going to be the problem.
It's a fun group, VB.
Well, it's parents who are worried about their kids and they exchange recipes.
Activist wine moms and yoga pants closing down restaurants.
They're not activists. For the most part, it's like sharing information. Like, do you consider this snack safe for your kid? Would you let your kid eat this? Have you ever been to this restaurant? Does anyone have any experience knowing if this movie theater is good with food allergies or not? So it's a swapping of information. So, but obviously, when a place has been considered safe or safer for a while, and then that is there, that's obviously going to set off red flags for food allergy parents, many of whom call places that manufacture food to ask if the thing is in the facility, which isn't required to be disclosed on ingredients. Some places will put like manufactured on equipment that processes, but other places won't. So, but they'll call companies before they feed food to their kids, and they'll ask for feedback from other people to know if a place is safe or not. And I just know by the standards that a lot of those parents have that a lot of them absolutely would not take their kid to the Children's Museum with that restaurant adjoining.
I can tell you this, that you may not take your child there at this point, but you're probably going to have to take your husband, because what he has learned is that peanut butter is being smeared everywhere, and he's going to be licking that stuff up the second
You know what? Woe betide you. That is anti-fatism once again. Hey, Albie, we gotta. Unless you want to get a few more anti-business shots in on VB.
It's not an anti-business thing. Like I said, I don't oppose the place's right to exist. I just know that there are going to be people who will not feel that they're welcome there anymore. So that's the message that it sends to parents of kids with food allergies. And, it's like when my sister made us go to her graduation dinner at a Thai place, and I had to leave with Anson because his eyes puffed completely up.
You got to close that down.
Red.
Close that business right down. That's what you want to do. And
because there was just too much peanut in the atmosphere.
Alice de Blasio wants to go kicking down doors.
I don't want to shut anything down.
All right.
But I wouldn't go. And other parents wouldn't go, too.
VB, before I let you go, VB, we heard you on Jerry Callahan's podcast today. I thought you did a serviceable job. I thought it was very interesting. Jerry is very upset about this place kicker.
I know. We gotta pass the hat, Shattuck. We gotta get him a Vanderbilt game jersey for Christmas because he cannot get enough of Sarah Fuller, man.
Oh yeah, history is made, Alice. A woman went on the football team.
I told you about this. I told you history had been made.
Something I call a squib kick, by the way, Alice.
Yeah.
Which I learned today.
So apparently they had her warming up kicking 14-yard field goals because she can't hit it consistently.
And then she lectured, like VB
yards.
with his radio crew of producers, she lectured them, about not...
That's the most unbelievable thing. And that the fact that she doesn't understand that for 99% of us, that is offensive. That she said at halftime, I would like to address the team. And then she gave them a calling down because they weren't rah-rah Harry High School supporting everybody while they were getting their diapers kicked. And they're 8-0-7. And I don't think these guys really wanted to hear it from the new girl in town.
Right.
But she did it. And then she bragged about it afterwards and said, some coaches said they wished they'd said what I said. No coach worth their salt would be saying that to a team that was 0-7 and was getting destroyed at half like that. But this is what's happened in that case. They're printing the Big Rock Candy Mountain version of what they wish happened versus what really happened, which was it was a cheap novelty stunt.
Yep.
Fine. I'm fine with that. But they just won't go with what it was. They will continue to talk about what they wished it was.
Right, and it's going to be wished into being considered fact now, which is why, years and years of this, now you've got, Yamiche Alcindor telling us the new Biden incoming cabinet is the Avengers coming to save us all, and she believes it. That's fine. He is VB the Wise on Twitter. VB the Wise on Twitter.
I still want Alice's Christmas cookies. I hope I haven't.
I didn't want to say anything on the podcast or to you guys, but I am actually allergic to gingerbread. And by Alice's rules, we can't have it within 6 miles.
I will definitely be bringing some over for you.
All right, VB, thank you.
Thanks, VB.
Carry on.
Nutted peas. Not worth it. I do apologize for Alice's insistence, by the way, that gingerbread is good. And VB, he's always had a problem with that. He's got a terrible palate. I feel bad for him. But he's a good follow on Twitter, at VB the Wise. All right. Where are we? Just a couple little tidbits I had picked up that I wanted to pass along before we say goodbye. First of all, Sanjay Gupta on CNN, who immediately after Trump was elected, said that this fervor had not been seen like this of nationalism since Adolf Hitler, and that this was tracking perfectly with Hitler, which is great to hear. Sanjay Gupta reviewed Barack Obama's book. He's got a book out, if you don't know. It's called Being the Most Perfect President in the History of the Earth with a Scandal-Free Administration. This is Gupta's impression of the book.
It is well written. Certainly the best written presidential memoir I have read. Obama has an easy and stylish way with words, describing walking through the West Coast.
Okay, thank you. That sounds good. I'll check that out. And let's see. Oh, yes. There was Vice President Joe Biden was questioned today by reporters. A hard-hitting question.
Mr. President-elect, how does your foot feel? How's your foot?
Good. Press.
And that was it. That is what you'll get from the press and Joe Biden right now. In her defense, it was not a terrible question, considering she had to shout it from down the street, and it was something that he would say words in exchange for. But this will be a cakewalk for these guys. There's a chance, depending on who you get, it's going to be a battle of personalities. If the historic press secretary's office, which is very historic, has some people in there who press buttons the wrong way, then maybe not. I don't know how Kate Bedingfield gets along with some of these press folks. A lot of it, or Psaki.
Well, it's going to be interesting because we did see a lot of this in the campaign, like with them confirming Amy Coney Barrett unconstitutional. And Biden is almost certain to go into a situation with a Senate that is not going to rubber stamp stuff for him. So there is going to be some back and forth there between what the Senate is saying and what the Biden administration is saying. And when reporters cover that, as we saw with stuff during the campaign, like the court packing question or whether or not Biden reads a teleprompter, some of it was too brazen for the media to be able to quite gloss over. Like they had to eventually be like, no, you're really not answering the question about whether or not you're going to pack the court. Eventually they kind of had to, because it was so obvious and so just boldly lying to everybody's faces. Oh, we answered that. It's all set. We answered it. It's done. And the media couldn't quite in good conscience like fully take that and write that down. So we'll have to see. I mean, if they continue down that vein of not answering questions and not giving the press what they need to provide cover, then, the media could get kind of feisty, especially if it gets them clicks, which it might.
Well, and also what's going to happen is you're going to get somebody like mistakenly somehow one day Yamiche Alcindor is going to ask a question that pisses people off. And one of the Avengers is going to be upset. The question was asked, and is going to tell the press secretary, Jen Psaki or Bedingfield, is going to say, hey, you call up that reporter and you set her straight, and you make sure that she corrects or makes an addendum to the story or fixes it right now. You put that reporter in line. And so then they'll call up Yamiche, and Yamiche will, A, cry, possibly, when they set her straight. Because a lot of these guys, they'll call up reporters and just try to break them and scare the hell out of them. And a lot of times you're dealing with 22-year-olds who are clueless, and they're not used to being yelled at. So in which case, if she gets upset or feels like she's being bullied, of course, then she'll go to her boss at PBS, and the boss at PBS will either say, stick to your guns and go tell them to screw themselves, or the boss at PBS will then engage with Psaki. And then if Psaki is one of those people, he says, hey, you need to correct this immediately. We want to see it tonight. We want to see it tonight on TV, this corrected and changed, and you better stop asking these kind of questions, because all they are is divisive, and it sounds like you guys are working for the Republicans. If that PBS guy, it depends on if he went to what kind of character he has, and if he's a journalist or if he's a guy who wants a gig and simply wants to be invited to all the best parties. If he wants to be invited to all the best parties, Yamiche will go and clean it up that night. If he's actually somebody who's into journalism, then he'll say, all right, Jen, F off, and don't tell my reporter what to do ever again. And then he takes his reporter and says, I want you to tomorrow to ask her the same thing you asked today, add these names to it, and then ask a follow-up question again, the same exact one. And I want you to call the offices as well of the heavies and tell them that if we don't get comments by broadcast time or deadline time, we're going to say that there was no comment, and that we're going to get a couple of Republicans to comment on the story and give them both barrels. Right. And then it's war. And I found that good editors, the guys I've worked with, it's almost all been good editors in newspapers. They are ready to fight in a second. And one, they're ready to fight, but two, if by chance, let's say a big heavy, one of the Avengers himself calls the editors, and they do have to make some kind of correction, or they do allow the Avenger to read a letter to the editor, which is one thing that we'll do a lot of times. If somebody calls and says, yeah, I get these all the time, says one of your reporters has been a jerk to me, this and that, I'll say, would you like to, you can be on record on the editorial pages. All right, now you can write a letter to the editor, write it right to me. We'll put it in. You can say whatever you'd like. And sometimes they'll go for it. So a lot of times an editor will make sometimes a concession. Some of the guys I've worked with who've been in the business for decades, but they will never forget. Ever.
Oh, yeah.
So don't abscond with department funds. Don't get a DUI, and don't go to lunch or with your 54 relatives in the back porch
after
with
you
just
told
5 of you
people,
and your sister. Yeah.
After you told people they're going to be in trouble if they meet with
Right.
more than 3 households. So
Right. So that'll be interesting. I got some other stuff that we'll just do for tomorrow. On Neera Tanden, I'm trying to do a little more work on Neera Tanden. I may kind of like her, Alice, in the same way I like Klobuchar. The more I don't know.
She's mean.
Yeah, there's something I like about that, and I'm not going to. I'm not going to try to tear the Neera Tanden hopes and dreams of confirmation down. Did we have news items? Anything else that Oh my goodness, Alice.
What?
Ellen Page.
Oh, you mean Elliot Page?
Ellen Page. And the thing is about this is that I looked.
You're
this
not
up on
allowed
Twitter.
to call Ellen Page.
But I looked on Twitter. But there was an Ellen Page, was there not?
There was.
What happened? Ellen Page changed her
is
name.
now Elliot Page, and so the Post initially reported that Ellen Page was transitioning, has come out as trans, and will now be known as Elliot Page. They had to correct their headline to be that Elliot Page has come out as trans, which would not be a headline that would tell you much about the story if it weren't accompanied by a picture. Right? If you just saw the headline, Elliot Page comes out as trans, you would just scroll right on by.
Right, because nobody knows who Elliot Page. Well, wouldn't that?
We all know who Elliot Page is. It's the Emperor's New Clothes. We all know exactly who Elliot Page is. We've known all along, and
that's the thing that blew me away.
We would never say the dead name Ellen.
So, but you can't. That's so.
You're not allowed to say the name anymore. Once somebody comes out as trans,
that kind of like headline convention doesn't make any sense. Because it obscures the truth. Nobody knows. We don't know. We don't have the information that Elliot Page was an actor. Because Elliot Page hasn't been in movies.
Elliot Page has been in movies.
No,
many actors have come out and said, how wonderful for Elliot Page. I've enjoyed so many of Elliot's films that he's been in. And I think he'll continue to do great work going forward. I applaud his bravery. So unless you knew what was going on, this would be very confusing. So, which is why the New York Post, I think, originally had Ellen Page in their headline and then realized that was against all the AP style guidelines and everything that you're allowed to do. You're not allowed to use dead names. that can get you kicked off Twitter if you dead name someone. So if you mistakenly play old style credits of
Home Skillet.
What was the movie?
Juno.
If you mistakenly play like the credits of Juno or something, if you put it on your Twitter, that video, then you could be banned because you just dead named somebody, which is literally violence against trans people.
Jesus, it's a tough world. All right, Alice, what's going on?
So you can find us on Twitter for now anyway at Burn Barrel Pod, on Parler at Burn Barrel Podcast, Facebook.com/Burn Barrel Podcast. You can shoot us an email, burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. You can also go check out our YouTube channel where you can watch a video of this podcast. You can subscribe to get notified when we put out new videos. You can like, you can comment. We'll talk back on there as well.
Wow, you beat the hitty of the Post.
C'est la vie.